All right. Well, I think we can sort of roll in, and I think more people will trickle in as we chat.
Sure.
But so with these kids comics launch events, my goal is really to showcase creators who have books that came out like really recently, and in this case, it's this week. The books do tend to come out on Tuesdays, so it was on Tuesday of this week.
Right.
Um, and what else do I want to say? I feel like because we're a community of creators, the purpose of these interviews is really to talk about like how did the whole book come about. So I'm very excited to
Okay.
hear in your case, Ken, because you've done so many different things. You've self-published, you've published with publishers, and now you're with Catherine Teagan Books, which is
Right.
a really well-regarded imprint. So let me introduce to all of you guys here Ken Lamug, who's the author of Mischief and Mayhem, the book that you see the image of behind him.
There it is.
Yay!
It's a
It just
book.
came out on Tuesday, and we're here just to kind of talk about the publishing journey. So,
Yeah.
Ken, do you want to just start off by telling us about the book? Like, what is this book?
Okay. Um, I can switch my camera here. Let's see, because I created this whole setup just for you guys. So we'll see if this works. Let's see here. Okay. Aha. You see it. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, so Mischief and Mayhem is basically a story about Missy and her cat Gizmo. And Missy is this girl who she's super focused on her passion. She likes to invent things, and she just moved into this new town, and she can't make any friends. Since this whole idea again started as a picture book, I had to really hone down on the idea of for picture books, everything needs to be simplified for a younger audience. So I kind of had to hone down on what really the story is about. So it's about friendship. It's about Missy trying to find her identity of who she is, and meeting the expectations of society, her parents, that kind of thing. So Missy moves into this new town, and she can't make any friends. She's trying to use her inventions to like impress people around the neighborhood, but it always backfires. So she decides, hey, if I can't impress people, they always love superheroes. So I'm gonna go join this superhero boot camp and try to become a superhero. So she joins superhero boot camp, and they find out that apparently you need superpowers to become a superhero. So she gets kicked out, and she makes some good friends there. And one of her friends is Mulvira, and Mulvira meets with Missy and says, "Hey, if we can't become superheroes, let's be the next worst thing, which is a supervillain. And there's no rules if you're a supervillain. You can use all your gadgets and all these things, and we can have lots of fun." So she goes on this kind of reinvention of herself and tries to do all what supervillains do. But in her case, she's just like a mischievous little girl. She doesn't really want to do bad stuff, right? She just wants to like have fun. And then later on, she finds out that Milvira actually has an even bigger intent of trying to take revenge against the hero. So now she's put in a weird spot where her only best friend, now does she cross the line and join her, or does she do what she feels in her heart is the what she really wants to do, and not go to the other side basically. So that's kind of the gist of it, and it's a lot of story about Missy going through superhero boot camp and making friends and her inventions. So it's very very colorful, a lot of action, a lot of jokes, a lot of foods related jokes in there as well. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So that's kind of the gist of the story.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
you said something that was really interesting to me, which is that it started as a picture book. So can you
Yep.
tell us how this whole book came about? Like, when did the germ of the idea come? What was your original thought that it was going to be? How did you get the deal? All that stuff.
Okay. Let me share with you my screen here. I did this quick presentation. So I'm gonna skip a bunch of the about me stuff. We can we can go through that later if you want. So here's basically the original idea. Like I said, it was just trying to find a story that kids can relate to. So it's about making friends, that kind of thing, and how hard it is to make friends, but also contrasting that with the whole superhero genre. So it started off as a picture book, like I said, and it was called The Amazing Mischief, or I think I called it Mischief the Supervillain. And these were some of my early sketches. And I'm going to read a few pages from the picture book. So it starts off like this. I'm Missy, and when no one is around, I become Mischief the Supervillain. Being a supervillain is super fun. I go to parties. Food fight! I play with friends. Hey, give that back! And I eat as much as I want. Burp. Yep, I do things my way. Until the League of Heroes appears. And it has all the different characters. Strong dude, power, cannonball. Weakness, nap time. Fast pass, power, skipping lines. Weakness, stoplights. Tag team, power, double trouble. Weakness, solitaire. I wasn't always a supervillain. In fact, I wanted to be a superhero. So this is her stage of her going to superhero school and kind of like a flashback of her wanting to become a superhero and all her inventions backfiring. And it gets to a point where everybody just, wants her out. You're not super strong, you're not super fast, and your inventions always break. So you're not cut out to be a superhero. So it goes on. So I figured if I couldn't be a superhero, I could be the next worst thing. Kachoom, like.
Mm.
But the problem with being a supervillain, it's not easy. No one wants to hang out or play. So she's trying to call all her superhero friends and nobody wants to deal with her. And she gets blamed for things that she didn't even do. So now she's like in her lair of woe, just kind of just hanging out there, like doing her thing, and then like binging on food, watching TV, and then all of a sudden we have a special news bulletin. Breaking news: an army of ninja robots have taken over the downtown area, and they've taken hostage of all the cats. And Missy loves cats, so she has to step up. So because of the bigger villain that shows up, now she has to protect the kitties and fight this new villain. And that's when she uses the gadgets that had failed originally earlier in the book, and then she defeats the bad guy. And everybody wants her to join the superhero league now. But then she says, like, thanks for the invite, guys. But as long as there are superheroes, there will always be mischief. And it's kind of like her own identity now. I'm not a villain. I'm not a hero. I'm my own thing. I can do whatever I want, instead of being like put into these certain labels. So that's kind of like, a subtext behind it. But essentially, it's really about making friends and finding herself. So that was the picture book idea. And the process was submitting it to publishers who publish picture books. So a lot of the publishers came back to us and basically they're saying, we like the idea, but there's a lot more information here that you can expand on, that kind of thing. And maybe some of the ideas are a little bit too complex for the younger age group. So those are some of the feedbacks that we got. But again, we are limited. We're still looking at it from a picture book perspective. I really can't add more pages from a picture book perspective. So then we have Catherine Teagan came back to us and they essentially said, we like the idea, but it needs to be a graphic novel. Would you be open to turning this into a graphic novel? And like I said, I've done some graphic novel, comic book stuff in the past. So I knew I had the ability to do it, but at the same time, it is a daunting task because we were looking at 200, 40-ish plus pages going from a 32-page picture book. So it was a lot of work to do that. But I went ahead and do it. It's essentially my debut traditionally published book. So I said, okay, I'll do this. And we didn't sign anything yet. It had to go through an editorial review. So to go through the editorial review, they requested a few things from me. They basically said, we want you to come up with, number one, a synopsis, the full synopsis of the book, kind of like the main idea of what's going to happen. We want you to come up with kind of like a chapter breakdown or a story outline. So from beginning to end, what happens chapter 1, what happens in chapter 2, till the book is finished. And the last thing that they needed was for me to come up with a first chapter fully illustrated so they can visually see what does your first chapter look like. Are we going to like your style once it's actually a graphic novel or a comic format? So and that's kind of what I did. So what I did was, like, here on the right side, you can see I kind of had a chapter 1. I had the name of the chapter and then had a description of what it is. So it's like a couple of sentences for each one. And the funny thing is,
You
back
have that?
then,
Sorry, do you have that on the screen? Can you share it with us?
oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize I stopped sharing. Okay, share. Okay. So yeah, I had so here I had a chapter breakdown, and it says chapter one: the girl next door and her feline friend. So we are introduced to Missy and her cat Gizmo, blah blah blah, and then it goes on chapter two, chapter three, up to I think chapter 12 or 13, something like that. And the funny thing is, when I was first writing this out, I wanted to the book to be kind of interactive and have like mini games inside of it. But that eventually got removed and got cut out. So that didn't make it into the final book. Um, so I did that. I did the synopsis, and the scripting I didn't do till much later after we had actually signed the agreements and all that stuff. And I created this one for myself and for my editor so she can see what I was planning for each page. And this is on the left side, you can see page one, what I was thinking as far as the script format when I wrote it. And on the right side, you can see the actual page, what it eventually looked like. And this is the first draft of this, so it doesn't even look like this anymore. But this was kind of the vision that I was thinking, and this is what I submitted to them. So as you can see, it's all black and white, and I was thinking, okay, it'll be black and white. They haven't told me it needed to be in color yet. So that was much later. I was like, all color, 240 pages. Oh my gosh, because I was originally thinking like bad guys, and that was all in black and white, and like one illustration per page. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, I can pull that off, but things change. So yeah, so I kind of scripted this book out, and I started turning the script into an actual comic book page, and then that's what we submitted are these black and white pages, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they liked it, so we signed, and it was just hitting the road from there on, just starting to craft the entire script, sending it to my editor. It was a lot of back and forth. She had comments, make changes to the story. Sometimes there were changes to the story structure where she felt like some areas of the story needed to be cut out, or it was too long, or
Mm-hmm.
some tips that she thought would help improve the story, that kind of thing. Um, and then we from then on, yeah, we just started working on the book until it was done.
So when you said that you originally had sent that picture book proposal out to a bunch of publishers, and was Catherine Teagan the only publisher that came back to you and said we think this should be a graphic novel, or did you get that feedback from anybody else?
They were the only one.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know if it because during that this was 2018-ish,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe at that time the graphic novel wasn't a big thing yet, or it could be just because we were pitching to the children's book department of that publishing company, and they didn't deal with graphic novels, kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's funny how much that the editor and publisher can influence the direction that a book takes.
yeah,
And I mean, I could easily see you having done this with a different publisher and it stayed a picture book. It's kind of amazing how, like, once the team comes together, it can totally change the direction that a book goes.
right. Yeah, it just so happened that they were open to doing it as a graphic novel,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
but there are superhero picture books out there too. So
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So you said that the puzzles got removed. What's the
yeah.
reason for that? Because when I saw that, I was like, "What? That's so cool! I love that."
Yeah, one of my earlier graphic novels that I was kind of doing. This is a self-published one. This is only about I think 60 pages, but it had six spreads of like this Where's Waldo type scenes, and
Mm-hmm.
then there were mazes in there. There were like different interactive stuff that the kids can play, and like different puzzles. So that's what I was envisioning for like, oh, that this would be cool to make it, like if they were running through some kind of like secret laboratory, maybe there's a maze before
Mm-hmm.
they get to the end, so the kids get to play with it.
Mm-hmm.
um, but they were targeting, I think, a younger audience that didn't do that kind of stuff, so I think the puzzles would be a little bit more difficult for the younger audience. I think they were shooting for more of the Dogman audience, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it can work as well on that audience. So yeah.
Mhm. Hmm. Wow. So how much time did how many sorry, what's the total page count of the book in the end and how much time did you have to produce the whole thing?
The total page count is about 250, around 240, 245 for the actual comic pages, and everything else was like the covers and the
Mhm.
bonus pages where they get to draw the characters, that kind of thing. So I would say around 800 to 900 hours for the whole book. Maybe I would add another 100 or so for the marketing stuff that I had to do, like creating. I made
Mhm.
a video for a video trailer. I made a bunch of Instagram stuff, new like giveaways. So I created a poster,
Mhm.
uh, all those little extra stuff. I even worked on an activity book. I think it was like a 50-page activity book where they can color. I put the mazes in there,
Mhm.
like the word puzzles,
Oh,
that kind of
great.
stuff. Yeah, so I put that all on the website for anybody to download. But yeah, I put some time working on those too. Yeah.
So what was the date when you officially started working on it with Catherine Teagan Books, and what was the date when you turned in your final artwork?
Ooh.
I mean, you don't have to give
Um,
me exact dates. I'm just curious, like how many months was the whole process?
yeah. So I didn't take note of when I actually started it. It was sometime late 2018.
Okay.
Uh, and then I finished, let's look here. Was it sometime in 20, like April 2020, something like that? I mean, it was kind of, yeah, around April 2020, March and April 2020.
Uh-huh.
But I was still tweaking things throughout.
Mhm.
They would come back like, oh, we need to, modify this because we did a review and this
Mhm.
part of the character's hand was cut off at the edge, so try to move that character. So like little tweaks like that throughout the process, even after I submitted the final art.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you had
Um,
about a year and 3 months or so to do 250 pages.
yeah. Um, yeah, about so. When I said 2018, that's including the writing too. That's not just the art. So it
Right.
includes all the writing, the back
I,
and
s-
forth.
I see Sandra's eyes
Yeah.
went like her eyes got big.
Yeah, I think that was actually pretty fast. Because I'm pretty sure some graphic novels take long, but the style is simple. So I had to really think about how do I streamline this process because I'm going to be drawing these characters over and over. So I had to make sure that the characters are simple. Especially, it helps for this age group the character to be much simpler. So I had to think about it that way. And there was a funny moment. You guys are probably going to laugh about this. Was when I think I finished the entire inking process of it, and then the publisher's like, oh, you need to use our black, our code for the black. Because if you use just the regular black, this is in Clip Studio, I just picked black, right? If you use that particular black, it's not gonna print right. It's gonna look matte. It's not gonna be shiny black on it once it prints on paper. So they gave me their code for the black that they use for their printer, and then I had to like refill all the blacks on all the pages. So I had to go back and like make sure the fonts are in the right black. I had to draw all the word bubbles. So I had to make sure those are in the right black, all of those. So I had to go back and like page by page make sure what did I miss here. Plus I can't just print it and look at it and make sure that it works because it looks fine to me. They're
Uh-huh.
the only ones who can really tell once they had it through the printers and say you're using the wrong black here. So like, oh man, I had to go page by page. But was
Oh my
it
gosh.
yeah, it was an interesting thing that happened. So now I know.
Wow. So the final files that you delivered, what format were they?
It was in Photoshop.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the beginning part of the process, I was hoping to just do it all in Clip Studio, but then I was like trying to ask my son, I have like a teenager, to help me color. So he didn't have Clip Studio, so I had to export it into Photoshop. And then 20 pages into it, he gave up. So, so I took back the Photoshop files and then like it actually helped because when he went through it, I gave him like the color palette. Even though I had to tweak something, it made a huge difference to have that extra person coloring, or even just doing the flats. So, but the rest of it I just had to do myself. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Wow, you're not the first creator who's told me that they used some child labor of their own children.
uh, he's definitely he owes me actually. Let's just put it that way. He actually wants this this is recent, right? He wants this $1,000 microphone. Apparently, like a lot of YouTubers and streamers use this thing. So I'm like, okay, you want this microphone? Help me coloring thing. And he's like, nah. you know. So like, okay, I got to do this.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's pretty funny.
So there's a bunch of people here. I'm gonna check in the chat and see. Oh, we got a question. Yay. Okay, Sarah, you want to ask about book 2? Are you here, Sarah?
I am. Hi.
Hi.
I was just curious, is book 2 being worked on?
Yeah, I'm in the inking stage of book 2. I just hit 182 pages. I think I need to have it all colored by sometime in September. So,
Wow.
so yeah, I'm trying to do normally because I have a day job as well. So normally I try to do 5 pages per day is kind of my goal. I'll wake up in the morning, do a couple of pages, and do like another 3 to 5 pages at night. Um, but lately I have been like trying to like just speed up the process uh, because I know I got that coloring stage that's gonna I don't even know right now how long that's gonna take. And the funny thing is about this book is there's a lot of characters in it, so there's a lot of coloring that's gonna be done here. Yeah, but I am working on it. So
Hmm.
Nice.
I see that Desi just asked, how do you balance this with parenting and a day job?
the kids are okay now because they're much older, so they're kind of just doing their own thing. But before, yeah, especially when school was happening, I would work on the book early in the morning, and then take them to school, and then drive back home, work on another page or something, and then go to work. And it's just you just gotta do it and gotta. I keep telling this to other people like take a break and stuff like that, but I never do it myself. So until one of these days I'll just break down. But yeah.
Do you work 7 days a week, or do you take like a day off, or?
I'll work through the weekend. Yeah. So, um, but in this, I mean, I'm feeling my age now. I mean, I just got to do it. I just got to do it. You only live once, right? YOLO.
Oh my gosh. All right. So Jason, are you here? You had a question? Where's Jason? Jason M to everyone.
Oh, he says he has no mic.
Oh, no mic. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the question is, when you suddenly have a bigger page count for a final contract with a publisher, does that increase the timeline to produce the final project? And does it increase how much you get paid?
I don't know if it increases how much you get paid, but I was able to, in the earlier stage, I was able to work with the editor to kind of figure out the timeline. So, she basically asks you, how long would it take you to do this? And it's really in the back of your head. You have to think based on past experience, how many pages can I realistically do per day, kind of thing. And then you do the math saying, okay, if I did this many pages per day, then by this date I'll have this many done. So and I based that off of the graphic novel that I did, which was about 150 pages, but it was a wordless graphic novel and it was a lot of spot art. So some pages would just be one illustration or two illustration, versus this one where it's like full color and all this stuff. So yeah, but the editors usually they're pretty reasonable about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of being open with them about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in the contract that you signed, was it accurate in terms of the approximate page count and the fact that the book is in full color?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you knew, but when you signed the contract that this is
right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So at that time we were already like, okay, we have to do it this way. And I think it was mainly because they were targeting the Captain Underpants Dogman. So they were mimicking that same format. Like, okay, it needs, this is the word count, page count, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
Mhm. All right. Sarah, you had another question. You want to ask your other question?
Yeah, talk about your choice on diversity using animals, humans, and tools. How did that come about versus just diverse human characters?
Yeah, I really wanted the world to have, it's basically like a fantasy world in a way. I wanted to have different characters that maybe reflect. Um, so if we have a character who is, you know, like a mayor, like me, the mayor that I have is, his name is Mayor Popsicle, and he looks like a popsicle, right? So I wanted it to be that way where kids can just look at it and, you know, they're having fun. And it's not a particular type of typecasting in a way. They can just be who, you know, the characters. And I really don't like our main character. She's Asian of origin. She eats Asian food and all these different things. But I don't really want that to be the focus of her story, because her story is her story, right? So, um, and all those different things. I think it's just, I love doing that for my other books as well. Is just creating diverse looking characters and diverse, you know, speaking characters, that kind of thing. So it's just been something that I've done in the past, and I think it just makes the book more exciting and more interesting.
Cool. So I think is the next person Des? Yes, Des, you had a question.
Yeah.
Ken, it looks fantastic. It looks
Thank you.
fantastic. So my question was actually regarding lettering, whether or not you did your own lettering, and if you have any tips or tricks or any kind of stumbles or issues you found with doing that.
Oh, the lettering. So I used calligrapher, and I made my own font based off of like my kind of my handwriting. So I think on calligrapher, I think it was a phone app actually. You get a template, and then you write on the template. There's a box for each letter, so you write each letter, handwrite it, and then it takes a picture of it and then turns it into a font file that you can use in your book. So I made different versions of it. I made a version for their dialogue. I made a version for their the caption boxes. I also made a font for when there's an action scene. So like a pow, you know, I had a font specifically just for that. And that, I think you're going to have to do that, just because when you are working with a publisher, normally when you give them all the files, they're still making text changes because the editor is constantly reading it, and she's passing it on to other people to read, make sure everything sounds right, reads right, spelling, typo, or if you're like, or if they're reading it and like they sense that something doesn't make sense, so they'll want to make changes to the text. So by giving them the fonts, they can just do it themselves. They don't have to send it back to me and say, hey, can you change the text here? You know, I gave them all the font files, so they're like, okay, we'll tweak this and that, and it just makes everything easier doing it that way. Yeah. And I think you can buy fonts too. So if you don't want to make your own font, there's a bunch of font websites that you can license, and then you can use those in the books. Yeah, because when I made my own font, when you're typing it out, the spacing sometimes doesn't look right because the font program is not perfect. So when you're typing a word that has, for example, W and then M, you know, that shape, sometimes the space is bigger, and then you have to go to another program to like adjust all the spacing to make it look good. So there's a lot of like tiny little details like that that you'll notice once you start using your font that you created in an actual text. You know, yeah.
We just had a question from Jason. Was it a true type or open type format?
I think they do both. Yeah, I don't remember exactly which one, but they can export to both types. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go back through. I'm still trying to ask the questions in order. So, Mary Jo, are you here? Can you unmute yourself?
I am here.
Hello.
I can love the book. Quick question. What advice do you have to authors who aren't illustrators?
I'm sorry, what?
You are an author illustrator, so you were able to do the whole package. What advice do you have for authors who are not illustrators?
Authors who are not illustrators.
If someone gave you a graphic novel to illustrate and all you got was the manuscript, what kinds of things would be helpful?
So in my earlier comics, I was only an illustrator. I was not an author. So the author that I worked with, what he did was when he gave me the script, it was as detailed as possible, right? So when he's setting up a scene, he put the description of where the characters are, what this world looks like. That way, as an illustrator, it makes my life easier when I'm drawing it. There's not a lot of back and forth with questions and things like that because he already did the work, when he was writing the script. So it's helpful for an illustrator to know all that information, and then they can tell you from their end what areas they're open with, as far as, hey, I'll leave the character designs to you because you're good at that, but I want the world to be like this or the action to be like this. This is how it's set up. So that's when having a well formatted and well structured script is really helpful. Yeah, and I would say if I was just an author, that I would probably maybe myself commission an illustrator to come up with some character design. So when I am pitching this to publisher or whoever, there's something visual that they can connect with in their mind, like, okay, I like this idea, I like the direction this is going. They don't necessarily have to use that illustrator, but at least it helps your story when you're pitching it to them.
So unlike a picture book writer where they say, don't put any illustration notes in, your advice is lots of illustration notes.
I would say so. There's a certain extent, of course, that and again, this is for me using the script and giving it to an illustrator. I think it helped as well when I gave it to the editor, because when I was giving the script to my editor, those notes that I put in there helped her understand, what's happening as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, now on the second book, instead of doing the script, my editor was like, skip the scripting stage, try to illustrate it as you go. So that's what I did for the second one. So it was basically like thumbnailing everything, putting the word bubbles as I went, my sketches, it's like chicken scratch. You can't even see, like, there's a circle, there's somebody saying something, So, but I tried it that way. I think it actually made things a little bit faster because the words, I think, pictures speak louder than words. So when she can see it, how it's placed on the page, she can follow it much easier than reading the script. So it helped. Yeah.
There's no one right way to do things. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Next we have Anita. Are you here?
I'm here.
Awesome.
Hi. Yeah, so my question was, because I had a similar situation where I had a children's book story that was suggested to be, that, no, we need you to develop this more. It's, make it a full length, middle grade novel, graphic novel type thing. And
right.
How did you approach going from 32 pages to this monumental task of a full length graphic novel transition of taking the story and expanding it?
Yeah, I was crying about that when I first started. I was like, how do I do this? Wow. So some of the things that I've learned is it's all about expanding the smaller moments in a picture book. Because in a picture book, you have a scene where, like, for example, in my case, it's like Missy goes to superhero school and then she gets kicked out. It's like, it could be like 1 or 2 sentences in a picture book. So now in the graphic novel, that could take up 2-3 chapters, because now you're really digging deep into what exactly happened. How did she get kicked out? And you're now expanding those into different scenes in the story. So that really helped. And then obviously you're going to have dialogue in there, people talking back and forth. So now I have to show, I have to show that journey of her going from home, traveling to this superhero boot camp, and then she just lands, gets off the bus, And then the bus driver makes a comment like, well, good luck, and she's just like, well, thanks. So now that could take up, 2-3 pages setting up that scene. And then she meets Ivan, who is the superhero boot camp, like a supervisor there. So Ivan is this pig who is, kind of like has like a foreign accent. Hello, I'm Ivan, like kind of like that. So now Missy now has to interact with Ivan. So Ivan like gives her a tour through the boot camp, like this is where kids are tortured, when when they're exercising, and like, what? Nobody, I wasn't in the brochure, like that kind of thing. So then you can add more dialogue to make it more fun and interesting. And then she meets all the other characters. So those things will eventually develop your character, develop the world, and you're introducing new things. So yeah, it's all about expanding those small moments from the picture book and then really making these characters alive in the graphic novel. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Okay, Sandra or John, I'm not sure which of you asked a question.
Hi, your book looks really amazing. I was
Thank you.
just wondering how much editing that had been going on with your editor. Did they have a lot of input in shaping the actual story, or did you have pretty much, could you do what you wanted, or what was the process?
There was not a lot of editing, as far as it was more suggestions, I would say. So there were a few things that they called out, like, oh, we really can't say this here. We don't want to, we don't want this to sound bad when the reader's reading it. So there's some tweaks like that. But a lot of it was like, I think if you change this, it'll read better, or it'll flow better, that kind of thing. Because I think what happens is, when you are writing the chapter breakdown or the main story outline, you already have, or at least the editor already has a good idea if she likes the story just based on that outline. So that's kind of your bone, the bone of your story, the structure. And from there, she can be like, I don't like this, because and make the changes there before you get into the details. So really, when we got to the details, the page by page, it was really smaller tweaks, because we kind of agreed on the main structure of the story. So yeah, it was just like little changes. And they're pretty open. So I think if you say, well, I really like doing it this way because of this, whatever reason, and if you can, rationalize and explain it and make them understand, then most of the time they'll agree with you. Thanks.
All right. Who is next? Oh, Steve. That's a good question. Steve.
Hi, yes. Yes, your artwork is very cool, very vibrant. And I was just curious about who or what influenced you to your art, for your art style.
So let me show you here. Maybe I can share my screen. So this is kind of some of my influences. So when I was growing up, I was super into like Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys. I was super into National Geographic, really loved Indiana Jones, Sherlock Holmes, Greek mythology. And then the one that I was really into was the Choose Your Own Adventure. Like that was one of the books that I really collected. And I wasn't much into the superhero American comic book, Marvel, DC. That wasn't a thing that I was into when I was growing up. Plus, comic books back then were super expensive, so I didn't have a lot of extra cash for that. But Garfield is one of the bigger influences, Peanuts kind of thing. For this one, I was really looking into like the Adventure Time, colorful, vibrant, Teen Titans, that kind of thing. So I wanted it to be really, really fun. But I think over time, I've just kind of developed my own style. So here are some of my earlier works, just to show you guys. So when I first started, I was illustrating for this online magazine. It was called Underneath the Juniper Tree, and all their stuff is basically macabre children's stories, fairy tales, that kind of thing. So I did like Edward Gorey style artwork, and then I went to self-publish my first picture book. It's called The Box Story, and that was kind of pencil line art. And then from there on, the editor for Underneath the Juniper Tree became my agent, and she got me Hurts Like a Mother, which is an Edward Gorey alphabet story, type picture book. And this is like yeah, a cautionary alphabet. So this is a really funny book, and it's all about parenting, like the perils of parenting and motherhood, right? And then after that, I made my own called The Stumps of Flat Top Hill. And then this one, A is for Asteroids, Z is for Zombies. Somebody else wrote, I illustrated. So these were all like Edward Gorey style books. And then I slowly got into comic books. So my first comic book was part of, I did a 4-page illustration for the anthology Tales from Las Vegas. And I also did the cover. And this one, during this time, Doug TenNapel was a really big influence for me. And I got into more Mark Mignola style, Hellboy style artwork. So I did comic books for that. I did about 10 comics for this. It's called the Monstrous series that my friend Greg Wright illustrated. And we met on Twitter. He just reached out to me like, hey, I like your style. You want to collaborate and work on comics? So 10 comics in, you know, we created a whole series. And now he's still doing it, but with other illustrators. And then I just keep doing like different anthology stuff. And then I jumped into my own, which I did a Kickstarter on, the Tales of Talbot Toluca. So I think it was like the evolution of just different things. And this is one of my more recent ones called Petro and the Flea King. And it's a wordless graphic novel about like a Filipino folktale. So this is much closer to Mischief, like the rounded head, much younger type audience. And this one was selected by the Nevada Humanities for the book that they selected for the Library of Congress for Nevada. But it was last year, so I was stuck at home. I couldn't go to Washington, D.C.
Oh,
So, well, hopefully that answers it. But yeah, it's more like a mix of everything, really. I don't know. Because as you can see, it's kind of diverse. Okay, don't blame me. I'm a Sagittarius, so I just keep changing like what I do every day. Like I like this for, I like this today. I like that tomorrow. I don't know. So it changes.
oh, I loved your answer.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, so let's see. The next question is from Josh.
Hey Ken. Yeah, so I follow you on your social media, and you're super active in promoting, which is amazing. But I'm curious, has the publisher helped with your promotion, and if so, in what way?
So they have run some ads on Publishers Weekly, things like that. So I think they were taking like ads on websites. And they'll let me know like, hey, we have this campaign that we're running. Here's what the ad looks like. Let us know if you have any comments. So they have done that, and they did get me like, I think somebody reached out to them from I think it was Colorado publisher or independent booksellers type organization. And they're like, hey, we want you to kind of speak at our group. So they sent that over and I said, okay, cool, yeah, I'll do something like that. So they have done a few of the ads. I mean, I don't know any of the specific numbers, but from what I have seen, they have done some things.
Are you trying to like? I know Freddie and me, Mike Dawson. He just had a book launch also, the fifth quarter, and I know he's done like it might be different. I think he's in Jersey, but he's started to do like some school visits and stuff, or like no, we just kind of got out of school. But
Yeah.
Is that something that you're trying to do, or is that still kind of back burner kind of stuff?
I would like to do some. I don't have a school presentation that I prepared right now, so I just kind of have this presentation that I think is maybe more apt for kind of creatives like us, where we can see the process and that kind of thing. So I need to prepare for something like that. I would definitely like to get my feet wet and just doing something like that. I mean, I did like a couple a long time ago, so I'm out of practice. And kids scare me, so.
And kind of unrelated, if that is your day job, is that have to do with art, or is that just a completely different thing?
So I worked for a small advertising agency here in town, and I've worked with the same group of people since like 1999, 2000. And then the ad agency, we used to do a lot more creative stuff, but then the ad agency kind of got absorbed into this commercial real estate company. So now I still do like web design. I'll still do like marketing materials, that kind of thing. But now it's all focused on commercial real estate. But since I've worked with the same people for a long time, like, I know them, and they're very supportive with what I do. Like my boss from the ad agency, she used to work for Sesame. She used to intern for Sesame Street, actually. Let me say, and over in New York. So she's super, and I think she has a major in child psychology. So she's super into this stuff too. She likes it when I show her new stuff, like, check this out. It's like, oh, that's awesome. I wish I could do that. So very supportive. And that's kind of nice to have around you.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Next question was from Desi, I think.
Hi, Ken. I was just
Hi.
wondering, what has been your biggest obstacle as a creative, and how have you overcome it, just in general?
Ooh. Like right now, probably. So I'm working on book 2, and I have some ideas that I've set aside, but I really haven't come up with new stuff. So I'm like, it's almost like you're so focused on a project that you can't think of anything else. So that's really hard for me, and I think I need that breathing room to be able to generate new ideas. Um, so that's one thing. The other thing is just with all the work that I do during the day and that kind of thing. It's trying to find that extra time to focus on finishing the project. So I've been pretty good in the past, with that. But then yeah, with everything else happening around, it's been a little bit more challenging. And I think emotionally, you get, as a creative, I'm pretty sure you guys can relate. You get those days where you're like, yeah, this is awesome. And then the next day you're like, no, you're just like gonna cry, like, what's gonna happen here? So it's that emotional roller coaster, really. So even like getting prepared for a webinar, like even like I was logged in like 15 minutes earlier, and that 15 minutes was just like, I don't know, what am I gonna do? Like check everything, go to the bathroom 3 times, So yeah, so it's just like, this all that weird anxiety that you get. I don't know. Yeah, the emotional battles.
Yes. Okay, so after Desi is John. Jonathan.
Hey, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yeah, we're in the same room here. Yeah, there she is. Look.
Nice.
Hey, I just want to say, your animation, your intro is really cool. I was wondering what animation software did you use on that? Because it's got a really nice kind of like cartoony, bouncy style to it.
Yeah. So I used Premiere. Because there's, we have After Effects. I tried my best to avoid After Effects. So I used Premiere, and I actually just did a frame-by-frame animation on Clip Studio. I tried it. So the running scene, that was like frame-by-frame in Clip Studio. And then it was all, I think with animation, it's really how you add all the little stuff that makes it interesting. Like little explosion, little overlays, little glitter that fly across, that like adds production value to your animation. So even if your animation is just things sliding in or bouncing, it's really like, it's like really like paper cut style animation. But because you add the sound effects, all these different little things, it really enhances it. So yeah, it's just Clip Studio and Premiere. That's it.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Next question. Susie, you wanted to know about the extra stuff.
Extra stuff? What's the extra stuff?
Yeah. Are you here, Susie? Can you ask your question, or should I ask it out loud?
Hi. Oh, Susie. Oh, there you go.
Hi.
Hello.
I pre-ordered your book for my grandchildren, and you mentioned earlier that you have the games and mazes and things.
Yes.
Where do we find those?
So that one I just uploaded a PDF on mischiefbook.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
there's a section that if you scroll down, it says download here, and you click, and it downloads the,
Oh,
the
okay.
thing. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's a great idea. It's really wonderful that you did that.
Yeah, definitely. I always like those interactive things because, like when I was a kid, I was super into that stuff, like the Where's Waldo, and even the whole choose your own adventure, right? The whole gamification of it. I just love that idea of choosing your fate, that kind of thing. So that was like always like in the back of my head when I try to create a new book.
When
Thank
did you? Oh, sorry. When did you create the website, the mischiefbook.com?
Months ago. Yeah, a few months ago. But I've been slowly tweaking it, adding stuff. Yeah.
So did you have the website created at the point when the book was going to press and they, you know, like was the URL printed in the book and everything?
No, it wasn't printed in the book. I think it was a little bit after. Yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah. That would have been a good idea though.
Is your author website URL in the book?
Yes, that's
Okay.
in there. So yeah, on the author website, you can click to it from there. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Janna has a question, but she can't turn on her microphone. And she says, I'm curious how hard coming up with the next story, book 2, was. Do you have contracts for more after book 2?
So the contracts is basically dependent on how awesome book 1 does, I think, and book 1 and book 2 does. So I think that's pretty much how everybody works now. So, you know, it would be great. I have some more ideas. My ideas are basically just kind of like a paragraph synopsis of what we want to do. And for book 2, what I did was I had my list of synopses and story ideas, and I gave it to my editor, and we actually kind of combined ideas from different, you know, book ideas, and like, okay, if we combine these 2 things, and I think that'll work for book 2, and we'll go with that. So that's kind of what we did. But yeah, I mean, it's easy enough to generate ideas and write basic synopsis for each book. It's just a matter of getting into the details of what exactly happens.
Okay, so Alan asked who owns mischiefbook.com. You are the publisher, and that's you, right?
Yeah, I own it because I was asking them about that, and they're like, "Yeah, go for it. You know, like get a domain name and make a website." So,
Nadia, you had a question. Are you still here, Nadia?
Yes. I'm sorry, trying to get my audio on and my video working.
Hi.
I'm trying to, figure out animation, and I do have like Adobe, like Photoshop and like the whole suite, but I'm just I don't know how to use it. And so you were talking about Premiere, which isn't like, is that part of Adobe?
Yeah, that is part of Adobe.
You mentioned
Clip Studio.
Clip Studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and I was just wondering, like, how do you like merge the 2 together? Because I have like PSD files, and I'm just trying to learn how to do the animation, but it's just a mess because every time I think I've got the hang of something, like my files disappear, or I can't figure it out. So.
Oh, okay. So my tip so Photoshop you can use to draw. Clip Studio is kind of the same thing as Photoshop for drawing, right? So what I did was, top secret here, don't tell anyone, is I looked up a bunch of running animation scenes, and you can easily like stop the motion and get the idea. Because, I don't have background in animation. I don't know like the smooth motion and things like that to make something run. Because if you don't do it right, it could look like weird, right? So there's a ton of animation clips out there in GIF format, or sometimes even on YouTube. And like on YouTube, you can slow down the frame rate of a video. So like really, really slow. So you can see each frame, and you can see the tricks on how they do these animations. And you can even just trace it, So Premiere is what I used to put everything together. It's like a video editor. So you can grab different clips, lay it on top, and then you can do little animations within those clips in Premiere. But primarily it's for laying out your whole video, and you can add sound and stuff like that and export it out. But everything else, all the components to put into Premiere, I did in like Photoshop or in Clip Studio. So yeah, so in Photoshop you can practice doing the animation, but to kind of finish it up, you still have to bring everything into Premiere.
Okay.
And yeah, so I think you don't have to get Clip Studio to do it. You can probably just do it in Photoshop and make I don't know, are you hand drawing each one, like all the motion?
I'm not the illustrator. I'm just the author. I'm on the learning curve part of being an illustrator. So I wouldn't even call myself an illustrator. Like, and it's
Okay.
not imposter syndrome. So
Oh yeah, no problem.
I can't draw to save my life. Like my, the illustrator I collaborated with, but she gave me the files to
Okay.
the trailer for the book. But like you were saying, I was trying to depend on my 10-year-old who's like super animation to like help me with it. And she's like, oh yeah, I could do this, I could do that. But then every time I'm like, okay, I need it. I couldn't get her to like, give me the whole thing together. It's like,
yeah.
There. And I'm like, I don't have time. So I
Right.
did everything on Canva and I'm just like not happy with it. But
Okay.
I wanted to learn, how to do it myself so I don't have to be at the mercy of my own child.
Yeah.
I should mention that there's an app I downloaded on my phone called Stop Motion Studio. That's very simple. And the reason I downloaded it was to play with my 6-year-old. And so even my 6-year-old can use it.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. And it's basically just, like putting images together to make a stop motion animation.
Oh, nice.
So I recommend it if you're looking for something like ultra simple.
Yeah.
Down and
What's
dirty.
it called? Motion Studio?
Stop Motion Studio.
Stop Motion Studio.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it all starts with a stop motion. That's kind of how animation is. So.
All right. Well, we only have a few more minutes, and there's still some good questions coming in. So maybe let's see. Well, I just want to make sure, Ken, that Josh had a suggestion for you. He said, Ken, when conventions come back, you should have a printed version of the activity book.
Right.
And an option to download when signing up for your newsletter or social.
That's a good. Yeah, I formatted it so I can put it on CreateSpace or something, so it can be easily, printed. Yeah. Awesome. That's a great idea. I want to do that for sure.
And then so maybe Jason will be the last question. But then I also have somebody who direct messaged me, I think it's Tracy, who said, which program did you use to draw the book? Sorry, I'll let you talk. I think you sort of already answered this, but.
Yeah, Clip Studio. That's what I used.
Yeah, Clip Studio. Okay. So the last question from Jason, and then before we leave, guys, we're gonna do a giveaway and talk about how we can all support Ken. So the last question, do you feel you're more focused with your artistic style nowadays? And has your diverse previous styles ever confused editors because of the stylistic range? Or are you like Picasso, where different eras seem to lead to different phases of art style?
Yeah, I don't know. It has probably because for the longest time, people would reach out to me and want me to do the Edward Gorey style because that's what I drew and that's what I put out there. Like when you search my name, but so I had to shift my portfolio, everything. When I went to SCBW events, I had to like redo my entire portfolio for the kids genre. But now I'm graphic novel, and so that's kind of a little bit different too. So I'm just hoping that they can look at what I have out there right now, and then they can see what I can do. So I have to rethink that again, actually, when we're reaching out to more publishers. But yeah, they tend to get focused on what you have, right? And what you do. So.
Okay, cool. So let me see. I don't want to miss anything super important from. Okay, good. So there's thank yous coming in, but don't go, guys. So Ken, you said you have a book for giving away.
Yes.
So what we did last time with one of these events, I think worked pretty well, which is if we can all support Ken by posting on your social media and using the hashtag, is it Mischief and Mayhem, Ken?
Yep.
Okay, so if you use the hashtag Mischief and Mayhem, and hashtag Kids Comics Unite, and just say what the biggest takeaway was for you from this session. And then in 24 hours, Ken will just pick randomly somebody's quote or social media post, and then we'll let that person know, and you'll get the free copy of
Yeah, for sure. And make sure if you do already get the book, leave a feedback review.
Oh yes, definitely. If you've got
super
the book,
important.
let's leave online reviews. They're so important.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to get my wife like write a review. I'm like the next day still nothing. You know, like what the heck.
But actually, you can though. Seriously, you could probably run into problems with that with Amazon.
Right.
Because Amazon is so crazy, and through their whole algorithm, they know who you're connected to. So I don't think you want your family to leave you a review because it could get you in trouble.
They might know. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good call. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah. But those of us all of us who are strangers. Okay, so let's put the hashtag in the chat. It's
I think spell out and Mischief and Mayhem.
Did
I would
I
just
do
cap.
it? Is that right, Ken? I just
where
put
is
it in the chat. Is that correct?
Oh, with the A and D?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
that's it.
Yep.
All right. All right, everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This is super awesome. Ken is amazing. And I know there's just more and more good stuff coming from you in the future, but I hope that book 1 is a solid success.
Thank you. I appreciate you
Huge
guys.
success. Yes. All right.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Thanks.